Hi, if you want to watch exclusive content with hot girls that you won't watch on YouTube, namely where Naruto roasts Kushina and Mikoto and many other hot girls without restrictions, then visit my Boosty channel at the link in the description.
You know, I've never been interested in what you're like. Perhaps it's all because of the image you've been painstakingly crafted over the years. Naruto lay with his hands behind his head, glancing sideways at the fair-haired, still very young girl. She gently stroked the lines on his cheeks, faded with age, and carefully examined Seven's face. "How can you be so sweet?" The girl leaned over and kissed his neck. "You're the most handsome man I've ever met in his late 30s. "That's a dubious compliment," he chuckled, but it was still nice to hear those words. Hinata never spoke like that. She barely said anything at all, just mumbled quietly. Lately, the gap between them had become too wide. Naruto was often late at work. Hinata and Himawari spent most of the day with their clan and Boruto. Boruto was always somewhere, either with Sasuke or waiting for him. And only Nuta waited for him. Gray-eyed, with a long, straight nose, thin lips, and luxurious, curly hair the color of sea sand. Naruto couldn't pinpoint what exactly attracted him to her. He'd seen enough of her long, slender legs, and she was far too lanky, much taller than Hinata. However, something about her appealed to him so much that he betrayed his marriage to Hinata, allowing for the first time the thoughts of infidelity, always plentiful thanks to the herds of graceful, luscious beauties who wiggled their asses around him without shame, to transcend vivid fantasies and become reality. "Okay, I have to get ready for work. So if you'd be so kind, Hokage-sama." The girl propped herself up on her hands and was about to stand, but Naruto grabbed her shoulder and pulled her close, hugging her tightly and kissing her chapped lips. "I'm serious. If I'm late, the boss will rip my head off, and then I'll rip yours off." As it turned out, after a month of dating Nuna, Naruto wasn't very knowledgeable about the delights of lovemaking. He tried to justify it by saying he hadn't had the time to study it in depth, but Nuna didn't even think of laughing at his awkwardness. She never laughed at him, only when she said she loved him. Not as a defender of the oppressed, a great Kage, a strong individual, but as a person, a man. Naruto was embarrassed to hear this, even though it wasn't the first time. He'd always had his share of admirers, but they wanted a defender of the oppressed, and so on down the list. But Nuna wanted only him. Simply Naruto, without any titles or positions attached to him. So, after her words, Naruto immediately grumbled, scratched his nose, spun around, and Nuna laughed. "I could lie here like this for eternity." The girl squeezed Naruto's hand, sitting on top of him. Usually, in any company, Naruto was the one doing the talking. With Nuna, he always listened more, never trying to blurt out anything to keep her interest. With her, there were never any awkward silences, like with Hinata. And if there were, Nuna would nudge him in the shoulder and giggle. He would also lie here for eternity, but there are some reasons why this is impossible. Nuna is a 20-year-old daughter of a local farmer and a waitress in a shabby diner. Naruto is a married man with 2 children, Hokage, a public figure, and there's no way he could lie around any longer than he should, even if he wanted to. Especially not in a room on the outskirts of Konoha. And despite everything, he didn't rush this time. Nuna couldn't escape his grasp even if she wanted to. She arched beneath him as, with one unexpected movement, he forced her onto her back and hovered over her. Never before had Naruto spent so much time contemplating possible sexual positions with a girl while looking into her eyes. Only when he'd been in love with Sakura, and even then, it all quickly vanished as soon as Haruno slapped him across the forehead. And looking at Nuna, he didn't want to restrain himself. "Okay, 10 minutes." She wrapped her legs around him and pushed him towards her. He'd been waiting for this night all week, and now, finally, he'd gotten it. Nuna groaned, hitting the top of her head on the headboard with a particularly strong thrust, and gave a stifled giggle, swallowing back a moan. She rolled her eyes, bit her lip, squeezed Naruto's shoulders, and arched, choking back a groan, even though she had no neighbors to hear. With a pitiful expression, her lips pressed together, she moaned, breathing loudly through her nose. She was afraid someone from the neighboring houses would hear. And in moments like these, Naruto especially liked her. As ridiculous as it sounded, her silent plea for him not to stop was a boost to his self-esteem. "Come on, me." When Naruto first heard her say that, he thought he'd imagined it. But Nuna had said it exactly like that. It wasn't that Naruto liked it or didn't like it, but it was different, not like what they usually did at home. At home, you didn't even have to bother with a condom. And Nuna was taking some kind of pill, and didn't seem to be planning on getting pregnant. Naruto wanted to talk to Hinata about this alternative, but he never got around to it. Nuna skipped off to the shower, tossing wet wipes from the nightstand onto the bed. Naruto sighed and took them. They were chamomile scented again. When Naruto and Hinata bought this house, he hoped it would soon become too crowded for their numerous offspring to play. He wanted many children, so many, because he loved them. Only with time did he realize he was a mediocre father. He was certainly no match for Sasuke, but he was clearly a failure as an average parent. The tantrums of a spoiled son, the unruly daughter, and a father's word carried no weight. Take Shikamaru, for example. His son might sometimes disobey his mother, but if his father doubles down on her request, which is often the case, then Shikadai goes to fulfill it, putting everything else aside. It's like that even in the Uchiha family, even though Sasuke shows up once a year. And Naruto is struggling like a fish out of water, trying to devote every free second to his children. And what's the result? Today is his day off. Boruto is somewhere learning ninjutsu with Sasuke. Hinata and Himawari are still asleep, and they probably already have plans for today, because they're not used to their dad being free. "Naruto?" Rubbing her eyes, Hinata appeared on the stairs. Quickly taking off his shoes, Naruto put his hands on his hips, straightened up, and spoke loudly. "Today is Dad's day off, so we—" "Quiet! Himawari's still asleep. And does the Hokage even have days off?" Hinata tied her robe and went down the stairs to Naruto. "I'll make breakfast. You're probably hungry after work. And don't forget to throw your clothes in the wash, not on the floor." She smiled, rose on her toes, and pecked her husband on the cheek. The house was quiet. The morning sun shone through the parted curtains onto the shiny, scrubbed floor, and Hinata was quietly fussing about in the kitchen. Naruto tiptoed up to the second floor and peered into Himawari's room. She was curled up asleep. Sometimes Naruto couldn't believe he had a family, children, that all the crazy exploits and incredible adventures of his youth were over. Now he couldn't risk himself the way he used to. After all, he had a family, even if it wasn't the most perfect. "Daddy?" His daughter's sleepy voice reached him. "Let's go horse riding today." He smiled and entered the room. Of course Himawari would go. She'd follow him to the ends of the earth. She found it increasingly boring to be with her mother, and so she was slowly starting to act like her daddy's little puppet. A couple of times, when the residence wasn't overcrowded, Naruto even took her to work with him, despite Hinata's quiet objections. By the end of the day, she'd become tired, cranky, and outrageous, and Naruto had no idea how to deal with her. That's when Hinata came to the rescue with a silent reproach. "Will there be ice cream there?" Himawari asked, already finishing her breakfast. "Have you done your homework?" Hinata glanced over her shoulder at her daughter as she dried the dishes at the sink. "And we'll do it together tomorrow." "Right." Naruto winked at Himawari, and she smiled back. "Do you have a day off tomorrow, too?" Because of Nuna's presence in his life, Naruto felt endlessly guilty towards Hinata, the utter bastard. The scoundrel, the traitor, but he couldn't help himself. He only tried to spend more time with his family. He even began keeping his promises to be home by the appointed time more often. "Yes," Naruto lied, trying to figure out how to explain the situation to Shikamaru and persuade him to help with it. Himawari's happiness knew no bounds as she skipped down the street next to her father, holding his hand. "Hinata, too, was quietly delighted, walking arm in arm with her husband and greeting acquaintances as they passed. The only thing missing to complete the picture was Boruto. So now we're going horseback riding, then we're going to eat ice cream, and then what? Naruto looked at Hinata. She shrugged and smiled warmly. She'd always looked at him like that, for as long as he could remember. And that look didn't foreshadow arguments, clashes of gazes, anything. It's up to you. Hinata looked into his eyes. Then, let's go to the observation deck. Naruto looked at Hinata questioningly. As expected, she turned pale, the smile vanished from her face, but she didn't say a word, hearing Himawari's joyful squeal. And yet, she was terrified of such heights, like the cliff with the Hokage faces. She didn't like this place, and yet she remained silent. Or we could have a picnic. Naruto felt sorry for her after all, and he quickly changed tactics, stopping testing her. No, better to the observation deck. Himawari's voice began to take on a petulant tone. We'll go out tonight while Mom... Naruto rummaged through his pockets and pulled out a crumpled certificate he'd bought a week ago and forgotten. They'll smear us with mud. He smiled and handed the paper to his wife. Naruto! Hinata covered her mouth with her hand and accepted the gift. This is so much money. Not more precious than your joy. He pulled Hinata close and kissed the top of her head, winking at Himawari. I was starting to feel like a bad, callous husband. So let me at least make things right a little. And not just that. He leaned toward her neck and kissed her lightly. What's wrong with you, Naruto? Did something happen? Hinata smiled nervously and looked into his eyes, blushing slightly. Maybe I just really miss our mom, huh, Himawari? Naruto picked up his daughter and sat her on his shoulders. Hinata! Naruto came up to her from behind and tried to grab her by the hips, but she removed his hands. Himawari's not asleep yet. She's watching TV, Hinata whispered, wiping her plate. I can still smell the oils. He buried his nose in his wife's neck, and she shuddered. Did you like my gift? Sakura's been inviting me there for a long time, but I never had the time with Himawari. Thank you. You're the best husband in the world. Hinata gave him her kindest smile, which only caused sadness and remorse in Naruto's heart. Hinata, I love you and our children so much. Naruto hugged Hinata in a fit of tenderness, and she gasped, dropping her plate into the sink. When was the last time something like this happened? Probably never. Relations in their family, perhaps due to Hinata's upbringing, had always been very reserved. Raised in the best traditions of her clan, Hinata was quiet and docile, rarely arguing with her husband and never raising her voice. Naruto even envied the Uchiha couple's relationship in some ways. They saw each other rarely, but every time they saw each other, there was a spark, even though Sasuke didn't particularly like it. He always wore a sour expression when he talked to Sakura. I love you too. But... Hinata once again stopped Naruto from trying to get under her shirt. I'll go put Himawari to bed. She has a busy day tomorrow, so much to do. Naruto managed to kiss Hinata on the cheek. The girl was sitting on the couch in the room, her legs tucked under her, engrossed in watching some cartoon. Naruto approached her and extended his hand. Come on, I'll read you a story. What kind? Himawari took his hand and jumped off the couch onto the floor. They climbed the stairs to the second floor. Naruto led his daughter into the room and looked at the bookshelf. So today, I'll read to you about... Better tell me how you fought your enemies. The girl was already lying in bed, pulling the blanket up to her chin. Oh, then you definitely won't fall asleep. If you want to sleep, I can tell you how Irika-sensei taught lessons. Naruto laughed and sat on the edge of the bed, stroking his daughter's head. Irika-sensei is old and boring. You can't say that. He taught me and your mother. He's a good man. But yeah, he's a real bore about some things. Naruto nodded. Okay, what should I say? I thought of something. After half an hour of telling him how some bad boy got sent to the land of toads for misbehaving and ate worms there, Naruto made sure Himawari was asleep, tucked her in, and quietly left the room. Hinata was still busy in the kitchen. Himawari's asleep. Naruto leaned his back against the doorframe and looked at his wife. I was telling her about my training. It was pretty boring. Better than any fairy tale to put her to sleep. Maybe you'll talk to me too? Hinata turned off the water, dried her hands, and hung the towel on the hook. Sure thing. Naruto shrugged and sat down at the table. What would you like to talk about? Remember the good old days when I needed to be rescued every 5 minutes from the adventures I was always getting myself into? You're the one who always saved everyone. Hinata sat down opposite him. Even me. I feel so sad for some reason. Is it sad to remember this? Hinata didn't answer. It was one of those things about her that irritated Naruto. If she didn't think it was necessary or couldn't think of a response, she'd remain silent, without even explaining. He realized this over time, and no longer demanded anything. She lowered her head and smiled. Well, what's wrong? Naruto stood up from the table and walked over to her, placing his hands on her shoulders. Everything's fine. Yes, it's just you're so rarely home. She looked up at him. Himawari is happy. And you? I'm happy just knowing that you're breathing. The woman sighed, pressing her cheek against his hand on her shoulder. Do you know when I'm happy? When? Hinata let out a cry of surprise and grabbed Naruto's shoulders, begging him to let her go as he scooped her up from the chair and carried her towards the stairs. Quiet, you'll wake Himawari. Naruto kissed her, kicked open the bedroom door, and froze. The smile faded from his face. Sasuke Uchiha himself sat on the windowsill, looking as gloomy and mysterious as ever. His expression didn't change upon seeing his friend with his wife in his arms, only grew even more gloomy. Oh, Sasuke, I'll bring you some tea now. Hinata extricated herself from Naruto's embrace and, bashfully covering her red face and fixing her hair, flew out of the bedroom. Sasuke shook his head with a smirk. And with you, everything is the same as before. You're talking. Didn't they let you go home this time? So you showed up at my place in the middle of the night? Naruto proudly pulled up his pants and approached his former partner. I wasn't there. I decided to run straight to our Hokage without delay with a report. Sasuke handed him a crumpled scroll. Yeah, you've been running for a week now. Naruto snatched the report from Sasuke's hand and looked at him irritably. Why are you late? Affairs. Sakura was waiting for you. Where's Boruto? She is still waiting. Boruto stayed behind to guard our camp. And I have confidence in him. He's not a fool like you. You're kidding me. Naruto poked Sasuke in the head with his palm and snorted with a smile. Sasuke smiled wryly too, shaking his head. I won't distract you. Uchiha was about to leave. Next time, come in through the door and knock. Like that would change anything, Sasuke said and disappeared. I brought green and black tea. I didn't know which. Has Sasuke left yet? Hinata stood in the doorway with a tray. Naruto glanced wearily at his wife and nodded. Hinata placed the tray on the bedside table and froze, looking down. Would you like some tea? Hinata, you're incorrigible. He fell onto the bed. I need to leave. Naruto sat at the kitchen table in Nuna's house, clutching a cup of cold tea. Nuna, wrapped in a blanket, sat on the counter, her legs crossed, filing her nails. Where? You don't need to know that at all. It's far away. My father found me a job somewhere else through some friends. Maybe I'll go to school there. A job? You weren't planning on. Naruto coughed tensely. You were planning on settling in Konoha. Don't be so upset. I won't disappear. If you need money, any help, That's not the point. Look, Naruto, I can't keep serving food to tables forever. I can help you find another job. I don't need your help. Think about what people will say. Besides, I'm the last one who needs help. You wouldn't rush to help. For example, my pregnant friend, who was widowed literally a week ago. In her situation, being left alone. Anyway, don't. Nuna blew on her nails and looked at Naruto. What is your friend's name? Naruto, calm down. You can't help everyone in this world. Not everything is under your control. I truly love you very much. You're the best man I've ever met. But I'm only 20. I need to move on. I beg you. Naruto stood up from the table. This won't go on forever. It'll all end someday. And most likely with a scandal. I may be a farmer's daughter, but I'm not the dumbest of my kind. Please stay. Naruto approached the girl, took her hand, and pressed her narrow palm to his cheek. Everything is so good. You're always so warm. I'll miss you. Nuna reached out and kissed him. Even your snoring. What should I do to make you stay? Naruto pulled the girl close, resting his head on her shoulder. Nuna responded with silence. Naruto's heart was pounding with impatience and uncertainty at that moment. She had to answer him. She had to explain everything. What should I do? She didn't explain anything, just kissed him hard and told him to leave. A few minutes later, Naruto emerged outside, looking confused. There was a tugging sensation in his chest. Either his heart was aching again, or he was afraid of losing Nuna. Naruto frantically tried to figure out how to convince the girl. He headed to the residence. Shikamaru met him at the entrance. Naruto, there. Order them to bring me a list of all single mothers and fathers within an hour. What? Shikamaru winced, thinking he'd misheard. Why? I'm going to the accounting department. Naruto, what's going on? Shikamaru spread his arms as the Hokage retreated. Really? How fast? Hinata shoveled more meat onto Naruto's plate, listening to him tell her how he'd quickly figured out how to transfer financial aid to single parents. You should have seen Shikamaru's face. Naruto nodded gratefully. So, Boruto, how are you doing in your training? Well, the boy drawled lazily, twirling noodles around his chopsticks. SOSO. Sasuke-sensei's been busy with Sarada lately. Sharingan, Uchiha, all that stuff. You're always busy. Just as Naruto was about to mention that he needed to run to the residence, after dinner, Boruto looked at him sadly and sighed. I still have some business to take care of at the residence. I'll just grab a couple of scrolls there that you'll definitely find interesting. Deal? Naruto gasped. Boruto remained silent, just like Nuna had this morning. After finishing his meal, Naruto thanked Hinata, patted the cowering Boruto on the head, kissed Himawari on the cheek, and rushed to Nuna. She didn't open the door right away. Naruto nervously tapped his foot. Naruto. Nuna, we need to talk. Well? Come in. She led him into the house. They settled down on the sofa in front of the quietly turning television, which was showing some soap opera. Nuna wrapped her robe around herself and sighed. I heard about what you did. If it weren't for you, I wouldn't have remembered how nice it is to sometimes do good deeds just like that. He forced a smile. The girl licked her lips and looked down. Silence fell, broken only by the series heroine's hysteria. Naruto scratched his nose, looking expectantly at Nuna. You're making fun of me, Naruto. I've been thinking about you all day, and now you. What? Why are you so good? Nuna snuggled up to him and hugged him around the neck. I'd go crazy if I left you. It's breaking my heart. If only Nuna knew how pleased Naruto was to hear those words. But he remained vigilant, as she hadn't voiced her decision about leaving. Then stay. Who else will remind me of such important things as helping others? Naruto kissed the top of her head, stroking her back. Let's go to the bedroom. Nuna took his hand. Stay with me tonight. Nuna, Naruto closed his eyes. Okay, of course I'll stay. When Naruto first married Hinata, the first 2 weeks, they spoke exclusively in the language of sex. He had mixed feelings about Hinata. Of course, He was incredibly happy to have been introduced to the wonderful world of carnal pleasures, and to be open to them 24/7, whenever he wanted. He could literally feel how much his wife wanted him. Her knees and hands trembled, her eyes glistened, her face flushed, she breathed heavily, and moaned whenever Naruto touched her. But something was wrong. Now Hinata seems to tolerate his attempts to fulfill his marital duties. He's just trying to be a good husband, after all. Even yesterday, she rather restrainedly stopped the awkward foreplay before it even began and went to bed. Naruto was starting to think Hinata knew everything. About Nuna, his vile infidelities, and how he spent nights off from work and preferred his mistress's bed to training with his son. But his wife was smiling, still as kind and welcoming to him as ever, so it had to be something else. Today, the children were prudently sent to their grandfathers. Boruto, as soon as he heard his grandfather's name, threw a fit. The reasons for Hayashi's contrasting attitudes toward his grandson and granddaughter would never have been clear if he hadn't spoken up himself. He doted on Himawari. In his house, she could do whatever she wanted. He coddled her and carried her in his arms and on his shoulders. But Boruto was a different matter entirely. He couldn't imagine a worse weekend. It was akin to cruel punishment for him. His grandfather drove him, forced him to exercise, practice his techniques, then read books, then tea in the best Hyuga clan traditions. One mistake while mixing the tea, and Boruto would be sent to do as many push-ups as his grandfather deemed necessary. Hayashi's rationale for this attitude toward Boruto was simple. I'll make him a true Hyuga. And so far, he'd been very successful at it. After visiting his grandpa, Boruto would return home feeling silky smooth, and he'd definitely last a week. He'd simply lose interest in pranks and mischief, pacing around completely exhausted and emotionally drained, looking at the world with cold indifference. At such moments, he reminded Naruto of Neji. Everything would have been fine, but the family was crumbling before his eyes. Himawari no longer jumped on Naruto's neck when he came home. Boruto snorted and ran to his room. Hinata smiled and, with a reflex that had been honed for years, kissed him on the cheek. And this was the most terrifying thing Naruto could imagine. The fate of an entire village rested on his shoulders, and he was doing a good job. But he couldn't build a normal family. Sometimes, if not for Nuna, he would be completely alone. Or maybe that was the problem, the one that had caused a huge crack in the Uzumaki family's foundation. After all, until Naruto kissed the girl in that dark alley, everything had been relatively normal. In any case, he couldn't leave it like that. That's why the children are now with the Hyuga clan, and Naruto himself is setting the table, waiting for his wife to return. When was the last time he did that? Never. He's not even a good cook, except for the seasoning of ramen, which he excels at. But today he did his best. He felt sick looking at all the delicacies he prepared, the open bottle of wine, the sunflowers Hinata loved so much. It was all one big lie. At that moment, for some reason, he remembered Sakura. Now she proudly wears the Uchiha clan crest on her back, and Naruto knows how much that damn fan weighs on her. If he hadn't been such a selfless degenerate 20 years ago, sacrificing himself, his feelings, his interests, Sakura Uzumaki would be the happiest woman on the entire continent now. But time has passed, and nothing can be brought back. Naruto can't imagine his life any other way without Himawari, Boruto, Hinata. However, Nuna somehow reminded him of Sakura. Perhaps that's what drew him to her. After all, he loved Sakura, always had. His hand shook, and the wine spread across the tablecloth in a red stain. Naruto clicked his tongue aside and placed the empty glass back on the table. I'm home. Son, are you? Hinata! You're so early? Naruto peered into the hallway. What's that smell? Hinata sniffed. Where's Boruto? The kids are with your father, Naruto said, smiling as he stepped out into the hallway and helped his wife take off her coat. This house is completely ours today. All of it. It's rare that happens, huh? Yeah, right. considering Boruto invited his friends over last weekend, Himawari, and I had to hole up in our room from lunchtime. The woman shook her head, so as not to disturb them. Himawari was so eager to play with them. Oh, come on, she wouldn't have done anything to them. The current generation is much more polite. At worst, they would have found something for her to do outside their company under some clever pretext, but I can't vouch for Sai's child. I saw Ino and Sakura recently. They were picking out clothes for their kids together. Can you imagine? They even managed to get into a fight because Sakura didn't like the t-shirt Ino picked out for Inogen. They're real friends. Hinata, still smiling, took off her shoes, holding onto the wall with one hand. And you? Were you with them? No, I was just passing by. But they were arguing so loudly it was hard not to hear. Oh, poor Sasuke and Sai. They probably brought that storm all the way home. Naruto led Hinata into the kitchen. And this, a little surprise. Naruto, is today our wedding anniversary? The woman clapped her hands in surprise and looked over her shoulder at her husband. No, I just decided to throw us a little celebration in the middle of the week. So guests are coming soon? Hinata was about to run to the fridge to prepare more treats, but Naruto held her back by the elbow. To us, me and you. Well, okay. Hinata looked around the set table in confusion. They sat in complete silence. Naruto nervously chewed his grapes, washing them down with champagne, and Hinata stood frozen over her plate, holding her chopsticks. They simply exchanged a few casual conversations, confirmed that everyone was doing well, and then fell silent. Hinata's lipstick hadn't even rubbed off. She hadn't eaten anything. The crack in the foundation was spreading in all directions. Maybe we should watch a movie? Naruto narrowed his eyes tensely. Let's go take a shower. At first, Naruto even leaned forward and raised his eyebrows, thinking he'd misheard. Hinata stood up from the table, took his hand, and led him toward the stairs, her hips swaying. Naruto swallowed the grape that had been lodged in his throat since Hinata suggested an alternative to the movie. She undressed him herself. She dropped to her knees and unzipped his fly. Naruto's legs buckled, but Hinata rose back up and pulled his t-shirt off. Then, deliberately slowly, she undressed herself, sliding the straps of her dress down her shoulders. Meanwhile, Naruto could only stand in the shower stall and blink, looking at the scar on his wife's back. She got it from pain when she nearly died rushing to save Naruto. It's part of their story, part of her love story. Naruto has many scars too, but those are different stories and different people. Naruto and Hinata's scars are a story of unrequited feelings, and that's what unites them. Hinata placed her palm on his chest and looked into his eyes. She was completely calm. Her palm slid down, and Naruto leaned against the wall of the stall, throwing his head back. They knew each other's bodies by heart, but now Hinata seemed completely foreign to him. He traced her collarbone, her hips, his fingers over them, as if exploring them anew. Then he cupped her buttocks in his hands and pushed her toward him. Hinata obediently pressed herself against him, burying her nose in his neck, causing Naruto to shudder. Still not right. When they got out of the shower, things got even worse. Naruto took a deliberately long time drying himself in the bathroom, running the towel over his entire body twice, while Hinata was already waiting for him in the bedroom, combing her damp hair with her fingers. Come on! Naruto looked tensely at his reflection in the mirror. Hinata didn't rush him. She waited patiently, and when he appeared in the bedroom, she only smiled, leaning back against the pillow. Her beautiful long black hair was a thing of the past. Naruto used to love playing with it, inhaling its scent, but now it was just a memory in the form of a severe bob. Hinata simply changed overnight. Not only her hairstyle, but their relationship as well. She'd cut it when she was pregnant with Boruto. She'd said it was getting thinner and harder to maintain. I suggest we go to the embankment later. Naruto sat down next to his wife and ran his hand along her thigh. If we can finish this before morning, of course. She giggled, shaking her head and pulled him towards her. "You can be rude," she whispered, and it sounded either like permission or a request. But Naruto couldn't do anything at all. He could barely move. He was simply paralyzed by a burning feeling of shame and anger. Is something wrong? Are you tired from work? You didn't have to try so hard at all. "No, Hinata, it's okay. I just wanted to make you happy." Naruto rolled over onto his back, and Hinata sat on him. "Well then, don't complain later." She winked at him, almost forcefully. Naruto thought. Everything was bad. Just awful. Naruto felt like an inferior freak, but they both needed it. "Wait, Hinata, what about?" He glanced sideways at the nightstand where the condoms were kept. "Maybe I want another child? Is it true? You were so happy." Hinata laughed softly, resting her hands on Naruto's chest. "No, if you're not joking, then we just haven't even discussed it. If you want, we can discuss it." "There's nothing to discuss. I hope it's twins." Naruto pushed his wife onto her back and hovered over her. And then the memory of Nuna pierced his heart. How much longer would this go on? A month, a year, a day? Hinata was the best wife. She was there. She was faithful. She loved him. She wanted his children. And Nuna. "No, I think you're still tired." "No way. Naruto-kun." Hinata always had warm hands, just like Naruto himself. But now she wasn't squeezing his shoulders, as she had during the first year of their marriage. She simply lay beneath him, her eyes closed, breathing heavily, short sighs, her head turned to the side. As Naruto fell onto the pillow, Hinata laid her head on his chest and gently stroked his stomach. "You have so many scars." "Yes, I used to like to brag about it." "Didn't you like it?" "Naruto, you're here, and I'm already happy." It was a definite no. Naruto himself wasn't thrilled with what had just happened. He wished he could say it was just a warm-up, that he'd do it again, and then Hinata would at least smile. But he wouldn't say that. It was pathetic and ridiculous. All those attempts. It was as if their family had never existed, and they were strangers. "I wonder what kind of test Dad will come up with for Boruto this time." Hinata sat on the edge of the bed and threw a robe over her shoulders. Naruto didn't answer. Hinata tried to change the subject, but the awkwardness still hung in the air. "I'll go. I need to throw the laundry in the wash. It's been sitting there for 2 days already." "Are you busy?" "We need to talk." Boruto entered his father's office without knocking and, as Naruto saw it, kicked the door open. The boy shoved his hands in his pockets and sniffled, lowering his head and looking askance at the Hokage. "What's the matter?" Naruto smiled and placed his hands on the table. "I want to go on a mission with Sasuke-sensei. I know you've already given him the order." "And he didn't give it to you. If that's all." "But father." "Boruto, Sasuke-sensei has a job to do. And it's a very dangerous and important job. He won't have time to watch over you and train you." "Keep an eye on me?" Boruto asked quietly, shaking his head. "Did you even discuss your desire with him?" "No, but..." "Then go and talk to him. He'll tell you the same thing I did. This isn't a game, Boruto. The safety of our village depends on the success of this mission. And not just the village. And I can't risk you like that. Think about what your mother will say." "Mother? Is that the only reason you're so worried about me? Always sending me on some childish missions. You and Sasuke-sensei were already on much more serious missions when you were my age. They were real fun, not like this kindergarten. Those were different times. And believe me, at your age, it wasn't fun for me to risk my life and lose friends every day. You have no idea what you're talking about. If my parents were alive, maybe they would have protected me too. No, don't say anything. Go." Naruto waved his hand, pretending to return to work, and began busily shuffling through papers. "But Dad, all I can do for you is teach you. Konohamaru-sensei has already taught me everything you can do." "How presumptuous." Naruto chuckled, barely holding back a grin. Okay, so what then? Well, I don't know. Konohamaru-sensei already taught you everything. He shrugged and moved the sheet from one place to another, feigning vigorous activity. Well, come on. Naruto chuckled to himself, narrowed his eyes slyly, and looked up at his son. Boruto was bursting with anger, curiosity, and impatience. Hokage-sama, you're urgently needed. Ahem, downstairs. The secretary barely glanced into the office, having overheard the family squabbles. I told you we can't come in, and anyway, but... Who? I don't know. She didn't introduce herself. Civilian. Naruto swallowed, looked from the secretary to his son and sighed. Wait here. I'll be right back and we'll finish talking. Naruto rose from his desk and strode out of the office, patting Boruto on the head as he passed. His secretary trotted after him, but he motioned for her to return to her desk. Nuna stood on the street, huddled, hugging herself. Seeing Naruto, she quickly wiped the tears from her eyes and tried to smile. Naruto's heart sank at the sight of her miserable face, but there were too many people around. Sorry to bother you. The girl approached him and nodded. I need your help. Sorry. Stop apologizing. What happened? Naruto looked around, barely restraining himself from grabbing Nuna by the shoulders. Daddy, he's dying. Nuna burst into tears, covering her face with her hands. I found out this morning. We don't have money for treatment, of course. Heck, we don't even have enough for the funeral. Naruto, please. I hate myself for this, but I'm asking. I understand. You don't owe me anything. Naruto closed his eyes and exhaled slowly through his nose to calm himself. He'd never seen Nuna so crushed, helpless, and weak. It seemed she was about to collapse from exhaustion. And he followed her. A completely insane idea flashed through his mind. Ask Sakura to help Nuna's father. He knew of no better doctor than Tsunade and Shizune. But what would happen when Sakura started asking questions? If not for that moment, Naruto would have done just that. Calm down. How much? A lot. Nuna rummaged through her purse and pulled out a piece of paper with a 5-digit number, still trembling. I just didn't know who to turn to. I have no one else in this village. Sorry for crying. I thought I'd calm down, but then I saw you, and it suddenly came over me. It's okay, we'll figure it out. Go home and get some sleep. I'll transfer the money to you in the next 2 hours. Everything will be fine. Naruto smiled, overcoming his nausea. Can you not wave your hand and just concentrate your chakra? Naruto slapped his son's wrist and straightened his back with his palm. Stand straight and firm. Yes, I'm standing. Boruto replied, more softly than usual. Apparently Sasuke's lessons were making a difference. Then stay there. Until you feel like you can't take it anymore, like your hand is burning. That means you have enough chakra. And release it. My mother beat me. This statement left Naruto stunned. In what sense? At training. I suggested it, and she agreed. I was surprised. She said she wanted to see what my grandfather and Aunt Hanabi had taught me. I fought with all my might, and she still. That's your problem, Boruto. You just give it everything you've got, leaving nothing for later. Besides, even I'd think 10 times before getting into a fight with your mother. Even sparring. Hyuga clan training is far more painful than regular training. Are you telling me this? Boruto huffed, focusing all his attention on his hand. In the end, you should be glad that our mother won't let anyone hurt her. Yes, I'll give it to everyone. Let anyone even try to touch her and Himawari. Well, here it is. Who is that girl? The one you ran off to so quickly. My comrade's wife. Naruto answered the first thing that came to mind, without pausing. It doesn't look like her. I've never seen her before. I have many comrades. Even more who have died. As always, you find time for everyone except your own family. I'm here with you now. Boruto pouted and lowered his head. Listen, that weekend, when you sent Himawari and me to Grandpa's, it wasn't scheduled. And Mom was home, So there was someone to keep an eye on us. The boy scratched the back of his head in embarrassment and glanced sideways at his father. Was it because you found out the jerk was hitting on Mom and decided to spend some time alone with her? What freak? Naruto tilted his head to the side. Oh shit. Mom asked me not to tell you. Once you start, finish the conversation. You're not going to tell her that I told you that? Boruto hesitated. I promise. Then, when I first saw him near Mom, I didn't understand anything. But he's always hanging around her. When I told her about it, she asked me to ignore him, saying she didn't take him seriously. But he drives me crazy. Mom is so strong, but she still can't rein him in. One look from her would be enough to make him go away. And how long has it been like this? Well, what's his name? Do you know him? When Naruto said goodbye to his son, the latter was beaming with happiness. It's unclear, though, what exactly, whether from training with his father, or because he's no longer the only one carrying heavy thoughts about his mother's obsessive suitor. His name was Yoshi Ohara. And Naruto would never have thought that this cool, sensible shinobi could act so foolishly. What if Hinata reciprocated his feelings, which is why she's been so cold to Naruto lately? What if he's being so angry for no reason? What if she's better off with him? No way. With this line of thinking, he'd already lost Sakura. He knew where Yoshi lived. First, he needed to conduct reconnaissance and, perhaps, intimidate him with his appearance. Hokage-sama? Yoshi opened the door for Naruto, appearing before him in his underwear. Sorry, I'm not in uniform. I wasn't expecting. It's okay. I just came to check on the condition of my subordinates' apartments. Oh, because of the new quarter? Yes, apartments will be allocated for shinobi there. Sorry for the mess, Bachelor Pad. Yoshi smiled nervously. So he never got married? Yoshi Naruto's expression instantly revealed everything. He paled, his eyes darted around the hallway, and he was shaking slightly with excitement and fear. He'd acted completely differently at their last meeting, even though that, too, had taken place under unexpected circumstances. Well, somehow, the man drawled, inviting Naruto inside. What? You don't even have anyone in mind? Well, not a civilian? I see. It was always more difficult with Kunoichi. Want a drink? Yoshi began fussily sorting through the pile of things on the sofa. No, thank you. And let's drop the formal tone. After all, I didn't come to talk to you as Hokage to his subordinate, but as man to man. What are you talking about? Yoshi straightened up and turned halfway to face Naruto. What's your connection to my wife? Don't deny it. Even your skills couldn't help you hide the truth I needed to know. You're completely out of control. How did you get to the rank of Jonin with such poor self-control? An inarticulate grunt was heard in response. And Yoshi plopped down on the couch, staring at Naruto with frightened eyes. Hokage-sama, I thought, that's right. No, call me Naruto. This is about my wife, not Konoha. He approached Yoshi and squatted down in front of him, never taking his eyes off his pale face. I'm not going to ruin your life or career, don't worry. Sorry. Hinata is patient and too modest to complain about the likes of you. But if I see, hear, or even think you even cast a lustful glance in Hinata's direction again, I'll come and beat your face in. Man to man. Don't you dare interfere with my family. Do you understand me? Yes, of course. This won't happen again. Yoshi nodded briefly and closed his eyes. Naruto stood up, looked around the small room, and threw up his hands. It's practically in disrepair. Tomorrow, come to the residence and fill out an application for new housing. Oh, of course, Hokage-sama. Good evening and good night. Chapter 7 Unlike many husbands in Konoha, who weren't particularly interested in their wives' interests, Naruto knew everything about Hinata. He'd learned her habits, sensed her slightest mood swings, understood her words instantly, remembered her favorite song, the location of every birthmark and scar. He'd studied her, and now she's like a book he's read 100 times. She's his family, his soulmate. But is that really how you treat family? Naruto couldn't help himself. Nuna had become a part of his life, and he couldn't live without her. More than without Hinata, much more. The thought of admitting his betrayal terrified and fascinated Naruto at the same time. He wanted to rid himself of this burning stone in his soul, but he didn't know how. He couldn't break up with Nuna anymore, especially since she was his only solace after Hinata's cold caresses. But he didn't want to leave Hinata either. What would their children think? What would people think? What would it be like for Hinata herself? Life couldn't continue like this, and Naruto knew it perfectly well. One day, this abscess would burst, and it would be disgusting. Here's the money. It's not much, but I'll pay it all back in time. Nuna hesitantly handed the crumpled envelope to Naruto standing in front of her. They agreed to meet at the mall to go see Nuna. Naruto had thoroughly prepared for this meeting, having finally bought her something worthwhile and memorable. He decided to surprise her, as she'd been quite down in the face of recent events. A beautiful, elegant ring. Figuring out her finger size had taken a lot of fiddling and scheming, but he'd finally gotten it. Now he stood there, satisfied, playing with the ring in his pocket. But the girl approached Naruto, looking around nervously, and handed him some money instead of greeting him. Everything okay? Naruto put the envelope back in Nuna's hands and shook his head. You don't owe me anything. We need to talk. Mom, look, Dad's there. Naruto heard Himawari's cry behind him and Hinata's quiet sigh, sending shivers down his spine and his heart racing. Come to me, Nuna said quietly and disappeared into the crowd. Confused, Naruto followed her light-colored head with his gaze until the very end, and then turned to his wife and daughter who had approached. Hey, sunshine! He picked Himawari up and hugged her, leaning over to Hinata and kissing her on the cheek. Going for a walk? Where's Boruto? He said how do they say, felt awkward choosing clothes with his mom. Hinata shook her head, laughing quietly. And he said that as soon as he saw you. And then he ran away. Did you have a fight yesterday? No, I don't think so. Naruto scratched the back of his head with his free hand. Okay, I'll go look for him, and then we'll find you. Okay. Shouldn't you be at work? Well, Shikamaru will cover me. Naruto winced guiltily, putting his hand in his pocket where the ring intended for Nuna was. No way. I don't want to feel Temari's reproachful gaze on the back of my head later. Hinata took Himawari's hand as Naruto lowered her to the ground. This weekend, we'll go get you some new pants and Boruto a new jacket. Oh, okay. You always have everything torn. Imitating Hinata in moments of dissatisfaction, Himawari waved her hand at Naruto, and they went their separate ways. After watching his wife disappear through the store door, Naruto walked quickly toward the intersection, impatiently rubbing the ring in his pocket with his index finger. Suddenly, he shuddered. He saw Boruto on the opposite side of the road, glaring at him. Without thinking twice, to avert suspicion, the man walked straight toward his son, a slight, casual smile plastered on his face. Why did you run away from your mother? And you? I have work. We are on the weekend. No, I'm talking about the girl you were talking to. You were holding her hand. What did she want to give you? That's the widow of my dead comrade. She was trying to get back the money I lent her. Your deceased comrade, by any chance, wasn't my father? Boruto, what are you talking about? You always come up with something. Naruto raised an eyebrow and looked down at his son. I have to work, otherwise Shikamaru will get into trouble. Go to your mother. Don't upset her. You too. Boruto muttered and ran away, bumping into his father with his shoulder. Naruto, I'm leaving. This time for good. What's wrong with Dad? Naruto threw his jacket over the back of a chair and walked over to the girl standing by the window. Died. I'm sorry. Me too. We'll go visit relatives on the islands. Why? Probably because no one but my father needed this farm. We'll sell it and move away. And you will leave everything so simple? What, that's it? At least me. Taking Nuna by the chin, Naruto turned her towards him, looking into her closed eyes, trying to see at least some emotion in them. What are you talking about? Are you planning on getting a divorce, leaving your family, leaving everything behind so easily? For me? Unable to find what to answer, Naruto looked away. Then don't talk nonsense. I would do anything to make you happy here, I love you. Clinging to his last hope, he kissed the girl on the forehead and pulled her close, resting his chin on the top of her head. And you love me. Why ruin everything? Nuna silently took his hand and led him to the bedroom. Everything there was already familiar, so much so that Naruto thought that if Nuna really did leave, he would miss this apartment. For a second, he even imagined coming here and thinking about Nuna. But he wouldn't let her go. She smiled somewhat crookedly and laid down on the bed, patting the spot next to her. Naruto obediently laid down and ran his fingers through the girl's hair. Remember how I asked you to rape me? Not waiting for an answer, Nuna laughed. Of course I was confused. I've heard a lot of gossip about shinobi, but about them being brutal rapists. Definitely not you. You're too good. It's a shame I was born so late and wasn't a kunoichi. There are so many worthy men in your generation. And, believe me, everyone has their own shortcomings. You did simply unimaginable things. Both what I heard and what you told me yourself. It seems like something like that simply couldn't happen in our time. You were just kids, after all. I miss those times. Everything was so simple. As you get older, you start to invent more and more problems, even though everything remains just as simple. But you don't see that anymore. With you, I felt a little easier. You're like you're from those times. Even so? Nuna got out of bed and slowly walked around the room, feeling Naruto's gaze on her. I haven't said much about how much I value you because I'm not good at it. You should have heard my speech at the meeting. Your chatter would only spoil your actions, which speak for themselves. Yeah, Naruto laughed and scratched the back of his head. I feel so sorry for you. You've been through so much, always searching for something, fighting, and still ended up unhappy. Nuna turned away, but Naruto managed to notice the tears in her eyes. What are you talking about, Nuna? I'm happy. I'm the happiest man alive. He got out of bed and took her by the shoulders. As long as you're here, I don't love you anymore. The girl whispered these words, lifting her eyes with difficulty and removing Naruto's hands. Or rather, I just thought I did. You say that because you have to leave. No, Naruto. I've been meaning to tell you this for a long time. The son of a family friend who trades pearls on the islands. I'm going to see him. My aunt has arranged the wedding. Someone has to help the family. But why can't you just stay with me? Do you even know him? Now that's none of your business. I'll send the rest of the debts soon. Don't say anything. Go home, she said, turning away. Nuna, what are you even talking about? Everything was fine. Naruto slowly shook his head, looking at the girl's back. And everything's fine now. It's just that circumstances have changed. I regret I couldn't tell you everything at the mall. It would have been so much easier. But if I loved you, I would stay. But there's nothing keeping me here. Now go. Nuna, leave. Nuna didn't even come with him. Naruto, stiff-legged and pulling on his jacket, made his way to the hallway, put on his shoes, stood up straight, and froze, peering into the darkness of the hallway and listening for the girl. Thank you, Naruto, came a barely audible voice from the room. Naruto's legs carried him through the streets of Konoha. He couldn't see anything in front of him, and he bumped into several people passing by. Finally, he decided to go to the residence to listen to Shikamaru's grumbling. I knew it. Naruto, the elders. Nara began, barely catching sight of the seventh. Is everything okay? I seem to be a little under the weather, but it's okay. Hinata will get me back on my feet in a day. Where are those elders? They are already waiting for you in your office. So that's how it is, you've condescended to my office. After an exhausting, tedious, and fruitless conversation with the elders, Naruto slid down the chair under the table and closed his eyes. Dozing off in this position, he was awakened at sunset by a knock on the door. Naruto-sama, Shikamaru-sama ordered not to disturb you, but they say it's something urgent. The secretary looked at Naruto with concern. Who's there? The Hokage, trying to straighten up abruptly, felt a sharp pain in his neck and winced. A girl. She called herself Nuna. Okay, let me in, Naruto said, sounding tired and disinterested, his whole body tensing up. A few seconds later, Nuna entered the office and locked the door behind her. Naruto looked her over, frozen in place, awaiting her next move. She quickly approached the desk, leaned across it toward Naruto, and looked him in the eye. We'll be in trouble, Naruto croaked under his breath. Later. We'll be fine now. Naruto felt unbearably ill, simply awful, disgusting. Nuna had left. She simply got dressed, hastily picking up things from the table and the floor, kissed Naruto on the cheek one last time, and told him they were waiting for her at the gate. So quick and simple. Nothing foreshadowed such an end. He didn't even want to go anywhere. He had no strength. And he didn't care how the receptionist would look at him. She was sure to suspect something. When Nuna walked into his office, he was naively happy that she decided to stay again. Everything inside him sank when she slammed the door. It was like a bad dream. An impossible chain of events in a single day. And I thought you'd be sleeping like always. Sasuke appeared suddenly, jumping from the windowsill. I think I already asked you about the windows. Naruto turned to his friend, raising an eyebrow, but stopped when he saw that the Uchiha was disdainfully wiping the windowsill with his cloak. Sasuke was another person who reminded him of happier times, though he wasn't exactly a bundle of joy and happiness. But he was, for Naruto. His heart felt a little lighter. It was as if Sasuke sensed Naruto's distress, and he decided to come over to give him his haughty look. New tracks to the west. Sasuke tossed the scroll onto Naruto's desk. Send some men there to clean it up. I'm heading to the maelstrom. Have you at least checked on Sakura? Uzumaki massaged the bridge of his nose, grudgingly looking at the scroll. It's just a report. Nothing important. Shikamaru said you were sick. Just weakness, nothing to worry about. Naruto smiled weakly. That's what happens. Sasuke stood on the windowsill again. When you're torn between two fronts. The Uchiha left, nearly knocking the flower pot to the floor. Naruto stood up from his chair, stretched, looked out the window, and closed the shutter. His eyelids felt like lead, his legs like jelly. Sasuke knew everything for sure. And Hinata, too. He had to go home. Chapter 8 It was nice and peaceful at home. Hinata left the hallway light on, hoping, as always, that her good-for-nothing husband would at least spend the night at home. And he came, but he was unlikely to be welcome. On the hallway nightstand lay a crumpled drawing of Himawari, his sweet, dear Himawari, who looked so much like her mother, having inherited only her father's eyes. Many compared Boruto to Naruto, marveling at how similar he was to the seventh in appearance and personality. However, Himawari loved Naruto far more than her brother. Perhaps it was because she was a reflection of Hinata. Naruto had never loved or spared himself, and neither had Boruto. Now he simply hated and despised him. A cold dinner, covered in plastic, sat on the kitchen table. He wondered how much spoiled food had gone into the trash in all those years Naruto hadn't visited. This time, he decided not to upset Hinata and, without turning on the light, sat down at the table and picked up his chopsticks. Shikamaru-kun said you weren't feeling well. I bought some medicine. Hinata's quiet voice rang out, and the light in the kitchen finally turned on. She looked tired, but she still tried to smile. Approaching the table, the woman placed her hand on Naruto's shoulder and stroked it. He nodded gratefully and removed the film from his plate. "Come on, I'll warm it up." Naruto didn't object, even though Hinata's cooking was delicious at any temperature, and he himself would never bother going to the microwave and waiting a couple of minutes. "Thank you," he said barely audibly, and put down his chopsticks. "How was your day?" "Himawari and Boruto are doing well. At the academy, they said our daughter has a talent for the visual arts." "Yeah, and her brother does too." Naruto chuckled, remembering how Boruto once painted on the Kage rock. "They got it from you." Hinata smiled again and closed the microwave door. He couldn't even believe this was his life. That he had his own home, his own family, a wife, children, and that his lifelong dream had come true. He'd become Hokage. And how could he ruin it all so easily? The moment Hinata crouched down to pick up some small debris from the floor, and Naruto saw her strangely sad profile, he desperately wanted to tell her everything. The whole truth about the filth she lived with, and the beasts she lovingly cooked dinners for. "Hinata!" But after hearing his wife's name come out of his mouth, Naruto hesitated and looked away. Who can benefit from this? She sighed with displeasure, finding a construction set piece on the floor. "You're so sweet today. Always. I can't believe you ever agreed to marry me. How do you even put up with me? If she were you, Sakura-chan would have been furious by now if—" And then Hinata's eyes filled with tears, which immediately rolled down her cheeks. She squeezed them shut, sank to the floor, and covered her face with her hands. She pressed her back against the kitchen counter and trembled, sobbing softly. "Hinata!" Naruto jumped up, nearly knocking the table over, and rushed to his wife, who was trying her best to hold back her sobs, gritting her teeth. "What's wrong with you?" "It's okay, it's okay." Hinata wiped away her persistent tears, shaking her head. "Everything's fine, I'm just tired. I need to go to bed, it's late." "Tell me, what happened?" Naruto sat down next to her and kissed the top of her head, pulling her close. "It's okay." Hinata repeated these words like a mantra, unable to calm down and continuing to tremble. "You should take some medicine before you get sick. I'll get even sicker if I don't find out why you're crying." Naruto covered Hinata's head with his hand and began rocking her in a futile attempt to calm her down. "Naruto, you've never lied to anyone in your life, never betrayed anyone." "But why me?" "For what? I know you never loved me and all." At this point, her voice broke into sobs again, and she hugged Naruto, clutching the fabric of the sweater on his shoulders. "You'll love Sakura for the rest of your life, but why?" "I'm sorry." Naruto didn't try to justify himself, pretend or lie, and that was all he could say. Hinata sobbed on his shoulder, and it seemed like any moment now, Naruto would start crying in unison with her. His heart ached with shame, anger at himself, and pity for Hinata, and somewhere deep down, it ached because Nuna was gone and he'd never see her again. And a little further, because of Hinata's words about loving Sakura. "Your dinner." Hinata suddenly pulled away from Naruto and stood up as soon as the microwave began to beep annoyingly. "Hit me! Tell me what I'm like!" Naruto knelt down in front of Hinata and wrapped his arms around her calves, keeping her from moving. I'm sorry, Naruto, but I'm not Sakura." Hinata shook her head and took a plate out of the microwave. "I would never hurt you or hit you." Whether Kurama was enraged by everything that was happening, or Naruto himself was tired of it all, he was angry. Anger overwhelmed him. He jumped to his feet and, knocking the plate from his wife's hands, causing it to shatter into pieces on the floor with a clang, he growled, "That's why I never loved you." Realizing what was said, he continued to look at Hinata's confused face, breathing heavily, expecting at least something. "Sorry, I'll pick it up." Hinata crouched down and began to pick up the pieces with noticeably shaking hands. Naruto threw his head back and looked at the ceiling in exhaustion. I'll cook some more now. Go to bed. Naruto waved his wife off and hurried out of the house, slamming the door loudly. The residence had been deserted for a long time. Only the patrol wandered back and forth, dozing off as they walked. Naruto entered his office and went to the window, looking out over Konoha at night. What advice would Jiraiya give him now? What advice could he give if he was as much of a loser as Naruto? He'd had success with every woman except the one he truly loved, the one for whom he was willing to turn the world upside down. And they both wasted their love years ago. Sakura had so foolishly tried to reduce his love for her to mere rivalry with Sasuke that Naruto felt sick at that moment. But as always, he kept his cool. So be it, as long as she was happy. He married Hinata. So be it, as long as she was happy. Sasuke was rarely home. So be it, as long as he was happy. Himawari thought her daddy was the best man. So be it, as long as... Naruto slammed his fist on the table, cracking the dark wood. The next target of Naruto's anger was the stack of papers he was already fed up with. All this pointless paperwork had transformed the Hokage from the village's protector into some kind of accountant. His gaze fell on a framed photo. Kakashi-sensei and 3 children, a happy, cheerful girl, a naive boy with high hopes, and Sasuke. Just Sasuke. With his perpetually disgruntled face, his reproaches, his tardiness, his own rhythm of life and daily routine, his willfulness, his quarrelsomeness, his arrogance, and his downright idiocy. But how much easier it would be for Naruto if he were there. Sakura wouldn't understand, and Sasuke would listen to everything, snort, and immediately and unmistakably determine how much Naruto had become dumber over the past year. And why is he doing this to Hinata? She was always the only person who was kind to him. She was the only one who supported him during his childhood, albeit quietly and barely noticeably. And he even got into trouble once for standing up for her as a child. Why did it all turn out this way? It's even worse here now than when you had diarrhea or when, you got into another fight with your friend Uchiha. And almost as bad when we got Himawari from your spawn. Naruto didn't notice how, sliding down the wall to the floor with his eyes closed, he suddenly found himself in front of Kurama. Stretched out to the full length of his huge body, nervously twitching his tails. You become so easily hurt. In every sense. You must be getting old. The fox dropped a heavy paw next to Naruto, but he didn't move. You're starting to think, I need to go back home. You know, I had a difficult relationship with your grandmother and mother. Women are always difficult. But that's no reason. We'll talk another time. Naruto shook his head, sensing the impending complaints, noticing Kurama's grin. Chapter 9 Naruto crossed the threshold of the house again for the second time that night. He had calmed down a bit, but he was still shaking slightly. How could he look Hinata in the eyes now? Before, they had each lived in their own imaginary worlds. Hinata in the world of his almost perfectly realized dreams, Naruto in the world of bad dreams. And today they collided. Everything was shattered. Boruto and Himawari were asleep in their rooms. Naruto peeked into the kitchen. It was spotlessly clean. How had Hinata found the strength to do anything after what he'd told her? He stood in the hallway for a moment, rubbed the back of his head tiredly, and quietly climbed the stairs, pausing at the bedroom door. Hinata was there. A sliver of light from the nightlight peeked out from under the door. For some reason, Naruto knocked and only then entered. His wife sat on the edge of the bed, her back to him, brushing her hair. Her silhouette seemed so miserable and huddled that Naruto couldn't bear to look at her. He silently walked to the closet and pulled off his turtleneck. Why did you marry me? Naruto sighed, folding his clothes, and turned to the bed. Hinata was sitting with the blanket pulled over her lap, looking out the window. What did she want to hear from him? That circumstances had conspired to make him think something could have worked between them, Or that he had once truly loved her? Instead of words, he shrugged, tossed his things onto a chair, and sat on the edge of the bed. Even when Boruto appeared, even then you didn't care? I love our children, Hinata. I love my family. Naruto, she began, but suddenly stopped. Naruto paused before crawling under the covers and leaning his back against the headboard, staring straight ahead. He folded his hands over his stomach. Hinata lay next to him, clutching a magazine. If you want, I'll leave. If it makes you feel better. I should say this now. I should have said it a long time ago. Forgive me! Forgive me! Naruto looked around in confusion, then coughed and slid his head back onto the pillow. Turn off the light. Okay. Good night. He reached over to turn off the nightlight, and at that moment Hinata laid her head on his chest and hugged him. Naruto paused, his hand raised, and looked down at the black head, hesitating to hug her back. He'd been falling asleep and waking up next to this man for so many years. I forgave you everything a long time ago, but it was too painful. Something warm slid across Naruto's chest and immediately cooled. Then again and again. Hinata pressed herself against him, trembling. Naruto had someone who would give up everything for him. And what was Naruto doing to him? Disgusting. He saw no way out of this situation. He couldn't stop loving Sakura, and yet he couldn't stop thinking about Nuna. It will all pass with time. It always does. Hinata exhaled and stopped shaking when Naruto finally placed his hand on her shoulder. I love you and the children. You are what I've been working towards my whole life. And I can't lose you. I love you too. More than anything in the world. Hinata sat up and kissed Naruto on the cheek. I always have. Why didn't she feel disgusted by touching him? Why wasn't she furious? Her calm frightened Naruto. But he kissed her forehead and stroked her shoulder. He wished he could escape Konoha right now, to the ends of the earth, to unknown places with a multitude of dangerous creatures and enemies. To experience a long-forgotten sense of life. To breathe deeply, look back, and see Sasuke grinning, drawing his sword, and Sakura raising her fist to strike. Daddy. The door creaked, and Himawari, clutching her favorite toy, stepped into the bedroom. I had a bad dream. Just be quiet, Mom is already asleep. Naruto moved a little, not letting go of Hinata, and lifted the blanket. Himawari jumped into bed and snuggled into her father's side, taking her mother's hand. Naruto kissed the top of her head, closing his eyes, tears stinging them painfully. He buried his nose in his daughter's head and began to cry quietly. Daddy, what's wrong? A child's hand rested on Naruto's cheek, and Himawari looked into his eyes. Nothing, just tired. Sleep, sweetheart. He smiled, running his hand down his daughter's back. Tomorrow it's my turn to take you to the academy. We have to get up early. If you want, you don't have to wake up early tomorrow. I'll walk to the academy myself. Or Boruto can take me there so you don't worry, the girl said, genuinely worried about her father. Himawari hugged Naruto, nuzzled his neck, and almost immediately began to snore. He swallowed and stared at the photographs on the opposite wall, barely blinking.